Hi everybody, welcome back to Right to the Top. I'm Adam. In today's video, I'm going to continue with my look at the most common reasons people lose points on their IELTS writing test. And I already did the essay section, the Task 2 essay. Today I'm going to look at Task 1, Academic. We're going to look at the summary, looking at infographics and analyzing and reporting on infographics, okay? So we're going to look at the 5 most common reasons based on the many that I've looked at and the patterns that I've noticed over the years of looking at IELTS things. So we're going to start with the same one we did for the IELTS, for the essay, I should say. Ignoring the scoring criteria or not knowing the scoring criteria. And again, I'm not going to go over it too much because hopefully you watched the last video, and if you didn't, there's a link up here, you can do that. Remember that the IELTS and even the TOEFL or CPE or PTE or whatever other test you're taking, the writing section is not all about English. It's not all about vocabulary and grammar. You still have to communicate ideas clearly. They have to be joined together. They have to have links and progression from beginning to end. So make sure that you understand the task achievement. Again, this is content. In the essay, you were looking at task response. In the task 1, it's called task achievement. Basically, did you do what you're supposed to do, right? Like you're supposed to summarize on the key features. Did you do that? And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more detail in a moment. Cohesion and coherence. Does your writing flow? Do ideas connect? Do paragraphs flow from one to the other? Do you use enough transition terms or linking terms and the correct ones, which are a little bit different from the essay ones, and I'm going to talk about that as well. And of course, lexical resource. Be careful here, you don't need like big academic words. In the essay, you even have to be careful about that. But in the summary, be especially careful not to overwork the vocabulary. And the grammar. The grammar is actually very important in Task 1 because you're going to try to get a lot of information into tight sentences. But again, that's grammar and that's vocab. Make sure you don't forget the first two. And just like the essay, remember that this is scored holistically. They're looking at the whole piece of writing together, not necessarily all the little different parts individually. So make sure you know how it's scored. There's a link in the description box to the official guides, the official scoring guides from IELTS. Make sure you look at those. So let's move on to other things. Now, this is a very, very important thing in the summary. And a lot of people miss this, and this will cost you a lot of points if you don't have this. An overview statement. An overview statement essentially tells the reader what is the main idea, what is generally happening in the infographic. And it doesn't matter if you're looking at a line graph, a bar graph, a table, a pie chart, a diagram, a map, etc. What is the general idea? Now, this is very different from the paraphrasing of the task. The task tells you, what am I looking at? The overview tells me what is this main, if I could only take out one piece of information from this infographic, what would that be? So it's a general statement of the information. So if things are generally rising, that's the overview. If in a before and after map, there have been a lot of changes. That's your overview, right? A lot of development or a complete renovation or whatever. Something is happening here. What is that general something? And keep the details out of it. The details will go in your body paragraphs. Your overview is an overarching look at the infographic. Now, you also have to be very careful. A lot of people will write a conclusion instead of an overview, which is fine. You can end your summary with, in conclusion, this is what's happening. The conclusion does the same thing as the overview. Now, the reason I always tell people, or I recommend against writing a conclusion, is because people sometimes mix it up with the conclusion in the essay. The conclusion in the summary is not, you're not reaching a conclusion. You're not taking all the information, analyzing it, and reaching a conclusion. You are not adding anything personal to the summary. Do not use I, me, my. Do not put any opinion. Do not put any judgment. Here's what I see. That's what I'm writing. That's it. So the conclusion can be a general summary of the main piece of information. Just make sure that you're not going outside of the infographic. If I can't see it on the paper, it shouldn't be in your summary. And another problem with the overview is a lot of people have an overview. They will say overall something is happening, but then they will start putting in too many details into it. Keep the details to the body paragraphs. Keep the overview very general. Okay, and I'm going to show you an example of that in a moment. Now, a lot of people also don't realize that there is a specific function to this section of the test. They want to see that you can take certain information and put it into sentence form, right? So a lot of people miss highlights and clear comparisons, and they include irrelevant details. Notice that the instructions for every summary is going to be the same. Make sure that you select main features. It means don't put in everything. Take out whatever you think are the most important things, like peaks and like high points, low points, trends, patterns, things that are unusual, right? And make comparisons where relevant. There's always going to be something to compare, especially, for example, if you're given like 2 pie charts, or if you're given line charts or bar graphs with all kinds of different information. Make sure you're making some comparisons. Compare the rise of one thing to the rise of something else. If something's going up, something's going down, mention that. But don't try to take all the details from the graph or the chart or the table and put it into your summary. That's the point of this exercise, which again goes back to number 1. The first mistake everybody makes. It's not all about English. It's also a little bit about, a little bit of analysis. You're not trying to reach a conclusion, but you are trying to pick out the more important information from the infographic. So don't try to include everything. Don't choose details at random. There has to be a reason why you mentioned a particular piece of information. And make sure that the paragraphing is not random. Make sure that everything in one paragraph is somehow connected. Everything in the next paragraph is somehow connected. Don't just throw in information wherever you have a spot for it, because that's your cohesion and coherence score that's going to lose points for you. The paragraphs have to have a purpose. Make sure that they are not random. So that's the main thing here. Next, a lot of people don't realize that the summary and the essay are 2 different styles of writing. Don't use essay features in your summary, and a lot of people do that. And some of these things are overuse of transitions, especially ones in an analysis. You're not analyzing anything. You're not putting your own mind into it. You're just picking out things. You do need transitions, but you need certain ones. And make sure you don't overly use academic vocabulary. You don't need it in here. The summary should be very simple, very direct, and it should be pretty easy to read as well, right? You don't have to be you don't have to show impressive English. You have to show simple writing, which sometimes can actually be harder, depends how you're trying to do it. So let's look at an example here. So the data shows the proportion of income adults and children spent on 4 common items in the United Kingdom in 2005. This is the task as was given, and then below is a student sample. A glance at the table. You don't need to mention a glance at the table. Just the table reveals. A glance at is an essay feature that you're trying to lead into it. Get to the point. Simple, quick, short. About Britain families' income, which were spent on 4 different items. Don't use the number 4. Write the word F-O-U-R. 4 different the items, namely food, electronic devices, music, and videos in 2005. Okay. Overall, so here's your overview statement. It is clear that, if it's clear, you don't need to mention it's clear. Just say what the clear thing is, right? Overall, it is clear that food had priority over 3 remaining items for men and women. Conversely, boys and girls far more spent on music in comparison with food. Don't worry about the grammar for now. Worry about how you're building sentences. Now, I rewrote this introduction and overview. Now, because I had a 1-sentence introduction and a 1-sentence overview, I just put it into 1 paragraph. I could do 1 sentence, 1 paragraph, 1 sentence, the next paragraph, or I can just combine them into 1. The table reveals, just get right into it. information about British families' spending habits. So it doesn't actually show their incomes, it shows how they spent their incomes. And yes, children have income because they get money from their parents to spend on toys and candy and whatnot. And children are varying age, so some kids have jobs too. So, reveals information about British families' spending habits in 2005 based on purchases of food, electronic devices, music, and videos. Overall, adults prioritize food over the other items while children spend most of their money on music. Very simple sentences. I do have a little bit of complexity because I'm using more than one clause in the second one, but very direct, very simple. Concentrate on the body paragraphs to be a little bit more playful, I guess, if you want, or creative with the grammar and a little bit with the vocab. Get to the point, make it as simple as you can. You have to do it quickly, get to your essay, right? That's what costs, that the essay is worth more points. Get to it quickly. Don't overthink the summary, okay? And last one, number 5. Details do matter on this test. Before I get into this, let me just say one more thing about the IELTS writing test, or the IELTS test in general. What a lot of people don't want to admit or don't want to think about or just don't know, IELTS is a business. They don't want to make this test too easy for you. They want you to, take the test 2, 3, 10 times, as many as you can, because you're giving them money every time you do that, right? They're not going to make it easy. So if you give them a reason to deduct points, they will happily deduct points. So details are some of the things that people lose points on needlessly. There's no reason to lose points on details. It has nothing to do with English, but it does have to do with your task achievement and cohesion and coherence score. These are parts of good writing, is to get the correct details, right? Pay attention. Make sure your numbers are correct. Don't mix up your numbers. Don't put the wrong numbers. Don't mix numbers from one thing and another thing. Make sure everything is correct. Make sure the measures are clear. If you're writing something went up by 1 billion, like $1 billion or 1 billion units or 1 billion tons, make sure that you put the measure with a number so it's very clear, and do it every time you put a number down, right? Misspelled words from the infographic. In the task itself or in the infographic, they will give you some words that you will probably use in your writing. If you make a mistake in spelling with a word that has been given to you, there's no reason to make that mistake, and they will take off points for that, okay? And make sure, and this is a big issue actually, more than people realize, make sure that you're not misreading the information, right? Like sometimes you will get colors, which are easy to detect, but sometimes if you get like a line chart or a bar graph, the lines will have different ways of being expressed. Like you can have little dashes, you can have long dashes, you can have a dash and a dot and a dash and a dot. There's going to be a legend explaining what each line represents. Make sure that you don't make a mistake in reading those lines, because then you're going to make a mistake in expressing the information that those lines represent, and that will cost you points, okay? So I'm going to show you another example here. This is a student sample. He or she wrote this summary about, it was a line graph. Now, I'm not going to read it to you. All I want to show you here, this is the original. This is what I did fixing it. Now, notice that some of the mistakes are about information. They're not about English. So, for example, this person mixed the comedy information. This is about movie genres. The comedy genre with the animation genre. Now, both of these lines were blue. One was a dark blue, one was a light blue. But this person obviously looked at the graph too quickly, mixed up the details, and now the information in the summary is incorrect. Points lost, okay? Sales. This word is given at the top. The heading of the line chart says movie ticket sales in whatever year it was, or over the course of the years. There's absolutely no reason to misspell this word. First of all, it's an easy word that you should know how to spell anyway. But because it was given to you, it's even more of a mistake for the examiners to take points off for. So, again, vocabulary, incremental trend, there's no incremental trends. Increments are rises or growth or shrinkage, etc. Another thing here, notice here, he got the wrong information. 1990, it should have been actually 2000 based on the numbers that this person provides. And here, we're not talking, if you look at the actual line graph, it goes 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010. There are no individual year information pieces, right? Information units. So a year and a decade are two very different things. So all of these little details cost this person points, even though the writing itself is actually not bad. The writing itself, the language and the vocab and the grammar is not bad. The details cost this person a lot of points in the task response, task achievement category. So be very careful about details, okay? Just takes a few extra seconds of paying attention. And that's basically it for the summary. Those are the 5 main reasons people lose points. Again, don't overthink the summary. Try to do it in under 20 minutes, move on to the essay that's worth a lot more points, and put all your energies on the essay, and hopefully the summary is good enough that it doesn't hurt your overall score, okay? If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the YouTube comment section below and talk to each other about it. You can also go to my Instagram and my Facebook page, and you can also join my reading club on my reading Facebook group. Help each other improve your reading and writing skills there as well as a community. It's nice to do. Now, if you like this video, please give me a like. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the notification icon so you know when the next video is coming up that will hopefully give you some good tips for your test. Okay? I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.